Welcome to Wild Woman. So today we have the amazing Alexandria Maria. I've met you, not that long ago, but it's amazing because now you're my business mentor. And honestly, like every morning I listen to your podcast and it just puts me in the right mindset. So I'm so happy to have you here today. I'm so happy that you accepted to do this because it was a little bit of a long stretch. I know we just started, but I was like, I want her on our podcast. I'm going to try. And you said yes. So I was so happy.
You're just a powerful manifester, babe. You manifested it. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
I like to call myself a business strategy and manifestation queen. That's a more fun title, but I guess the one that kind of explains it a little more simply is I'm a business mentor and empowerment coach. So I help ambitious women build a life beyond their wildest dreams. I'm all about women stepping into their power, building epic businesses and empires, and all the ripple effects that come from that. So, stepping into new levels of abundance, alignment, creating amazing impact in the world, all these incredible things that happen when women truly step into their power and realize how unlimited they are when it comes to that.
Yeah, I love everything you just said. Like, it's so inspiring.
You're part of it, babes. It's what you're doing at the moment.
Yes, yes. So I want to start by asking you what made you decide to do this work? So, what made
Mhm.
you say, I want to be a mentor, a business owner, a coach?
Yeah, for sure. So I felt the calling to be coaching quite a while ago now. When I was younger, I was always into yoga before it was like cool to be into yoga. When I was 21, I ran off to an ashram for a month and like became a yoga teacher. Again, this is like nearly 10 years ago. So yoga wasn't as cool as it is now. Now it's kind of like pretty normal to go do a yoga teacher training. So I was always really interested in this kind of side of life, but I really denied that part of myself. I thought it wasn't sensible. I didn't think I could earn any money. I didn't think it was like the adult thing to do. And I really didn't have any role models at that point. I think now with Instagram, we see all these amazing yoga
Mhm.
teachers and, spiritual teachers and coaches and mentors. I didn't really Instagram, I maybe it was a thing. I wasn't on Instagram back then. So I didn't really have any reference points for that being an option or an opportunity. So I really denied that part of myself and went very much down the corporate route, the sensible adult route, did all the adult things. But the more I denied myself, the further out of alignment I became, the more I struggled with it. And it accumulated for me in a really, well, a breakdown. And I experienced this breakdown. And at that point, I was like, I've got to create a life that lights me up. I've really got to listen to what I love doing and the gifts that I've been given. I don't think I was ready to fully explore them then. It's very hard to go. I think we love transformation stories where you go from A to B, but the reality, and anyone who's been on a healing journey or done any work on themselves will know this, is you go from A to G to C to F to, like, you bounce around a bit. It's never really a straight line. And I couldn't just tap straight into my desires and create a life of alignment straight away. So I actually set up a health food business. That was the first business I set up, and it was closer to what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to coach, but I had this massive limiting belief that no one would take me seriously and that you could only coach if you'd already had a successful business. And I didn't even necessarily want to business coach. I just wanted to like life coach at this point. So I don't know where I got this belief from, but this was obviously the journey I was meant to go on for a reason, because I set up this business, loved it. It was very successful outwardly, but really realized I'd created my own cage for myself again. It was the same trappings of corporate, in terms of I was very much office bound. We were dealing with investors, I was doing pitch decks. It stopped really lighting me up, and that was the point where I thought, right, I've really got to listen to myself. I need to be coaching, because that's the calling that I felt I needed to do. And then the business side of things, I do have a business master's. I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. I established this business literally from my kitchen, became a national brand. So I kind of got asked to do the business mentoring, weirdly. And that was, well, I say weirdly, I'm a projector, so that was perfect. So I got the invitation and I just discovered I loved that side of it. So that's kind of what I do now. I bring together the transformational life coaching and the business mentoring. And yeah, I just love it.
So it wasn't as much as a like aha moment as more of like a journey.
Totally. And like I had like aha moments along it. So when I had the idea for the food business, that was like a complete dropped in aha moment. I definitely did keep hearing this whisper to coach, but I ignored it. So I guess maybe I had the aha moments, but I just kept ignoring them.
And that happens often too with a lot of people.
Completely. Completely.
You talked about like alignment. So some people don't actually know what that means. So how would you
Mhm.
describe living in alignment and living out of alignment?
I actually want to steal someone else's analogy here because I think it's just so brilliant. And I think it's Peter Kelly. She writes Earth is Hiring.
Yeah, I like her.
Yeah, it's Peter Kelly. Yeah, amazing. I was like, I can remember it's Peter, but I couldn't remember her second name. And she refers to it as like a kink in your hose. So you know, if your hose pipe is like in alignment, the water flows, everything's flowing, everything's good. But when you kink your hose, the water isn't flowing, there's no flow, like you create this buildup of pressure. That's definitely like a very embodied visual of what it feels like to me not to be in alignment. The other kind of visual that I always get as well is like all the stars coming in alignment and then almost this golden light appearing. But I think that's really the best kind of visuals I can give to it, because it's really about bringing in all these different elements of your life into alignment, and what alignment is unique for you. So, you know, working out what fills you with energy, what makes you feel alive and lit up and passionate, and what drains your energy and what doesn't feel good, what's kind of that kind of like annoyance that you feel, that kind of like that grr feeling, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't feel good. What are all those things? How can you move away from those, come into alignment? Because the more elements of your life that you can bring into alignment, the more that you experience this flow, and this sense of ease. That isn't to say we don't face resistance still. I think, you know, resistance is part of the journey. It has so many lessons in it. So much growth comes from the resistance. And, you know, I think the resistance also helps you come more into alignment often, because you learn what isn't right as well as what is right for you. But yeah, I think that's the best description I can probably give of what it feels like to be in alignment.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned like resistance, because a lot of people have the misconception of like, well, if you're stressed, I mean, I had that belief. If you're stressed, then you're out of alignment.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned earlier, going on a business journey, that's so stressful in itself. And it doesn't mean you're out of alignment, right?
No, I think there's, you know, there's degrees with all of this. So I think, you know, if you're like in complete stress, in complete hustle, you know, that's something that I'm really passionate about, particularly female entrepreneurs moving away from, you know, that might be a sign actually it's out of alignment. But facing resistance and having to work through that, I always say it, but starting a business is such a healing journey. And that can create, you know, quote unquote, a feeling of stress, because you know, it's shit hard leaving your comfort zone and doing things you've never done before. Of course it is, but it's also part of the growth. So I think there's, you know, I think if you're constantly in that, that's different. But I think you also have to realize that when you leave your comfort zone, when you're in the growth, that can feel uncomfortable. That can be normal. Again, like I don't know why today I'm really into like the visual representations, but I always think of starting a business as building a snowball. So when you're first building that snowball, you're putting effort in. You know, you've got effort. You're having to like build it, pack it in, gather the snow, put it all together. And when you start rolling it down that hill, it's a bit of effort. You've got to be pushing a little bit, you know, you're putting your energy in. But the further in that journey you get, the more momentum you build, the easier it gets and the more it flows. And I really think that's true of a business. I think people who say that there's no feeling of discomfort starting a business and never any resistance are lying. I think it is part of it, but that's because you are leaving your comfort zone. It's because you're building something, you're building that momentum, but that can initially need that spark of energy.
Yeah. And we do have a tendency to compare ourselves to people that are way ahead of us. So,
Mm.
what would be your best advice when someone does that?
You just can't. Like point blank, you just can't, because you just have no idea what went on behind someone's business. So, you know, my business was 18 months old, I think it was, when we did the first six-figure months in revenue. But my backstory to that was years of hustle, learning the hard way, burnout, moving away from burnout, starting Instagrams, blogs, travel blog, like, doing so many things, taking so many courses. So if you just take that as a headline, oh, great, how quote unquote successful.
Yeah.
But it's bullshit, because there was so much that went behind that. Now, I know that, but I think that's what we tend to do. We tend to look at people's headlines and we forget everything that went behind it, that maybe we didn't see, or we didn't know about, or they haven't shared. So it's impossible to compare, because you've not walked their journey, you've not been in their shoes, so you can't have an accurate depiction of what that looked like. You haven't followed them around 24 hours a day. You didn't see them sitting on the floor and having a cry, or the times that it felt so hard they felt like giving up. And some people share that. I really try and make a point of sharing the more difficult times as well as the good. But it's still impossible to share every minute of every day. Now, that's not to say that like I said, you can do it without kind of some of that tension, and there's tools that can definitely support you and guide you through. And you can work with mentors and coaches. You can have that support around you, even just friendship to support you. But I think to just say that everything is sunshine and roses, and to try and compare it to someone else and say that, it wouldn't be an accurate reflection.
Yeah. And you mentioned successful. So what does success mean to you?
Successful means to me, not just me being successful, but the women I work with stepping into their
Mhm.
own versions of success. So for me, my business is not successful if only my business is successful. My business is successful if I help other women build successful businesses. But I think success in general is such a personal term, what it means to you, and what that looks like. I think everyone needs to kind of create their own definition, because I think the old school version of success, which was purely based on money and prestige, is so outdated now. And that's not to say abundance can't be part of that success, but I think we really need to look to a deeper sense of fulfillment and where we get that from.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that you said that, because I think that having support is a big part of just growth in general. And you talked a little bit about friendships. So how important is having a circle of other women to support you on your journey?
Unbelievably important. And I try my hardest to be super independent. I've still got some learning and some growth to do there when it comes to just like leaning on others and asking them for help. I'm so used to being the person that's holding space or supporting. I've still got growth to do there, but the more and more I go into this journey, the more I could not do it without the amazing friends around me. you know, Everything from knowledge sharing to celebrating you to, cheering you on the crap days as well when everything's gone wrong, or just saying, totally get it, or I've been there, that's happened to me too. Like, just so many levels of comfort and support, expansion come through having those friendships around you. I honestly just, and that's something I've experienced in the groups as well. I mean, you'll know you're in the Soulful Startup, but something I never realized when I started those group programs was how close the women in the group would become,
Mm,
and they would create their own magic that just I couldn't even do that. That was them. And it's so amazing to see how they continue to support each other, how that support goes on way beyond the program. It's nothing short of magic. It's incredible.
yeah, I find sisterhood so powerful, and was definitely something that was a big part of my healing journey, or even just finding out what I wanted to do with my life and living in alignment, because it's
Mm.
so motivating and inspiring to be around other women that know what they want to do and go for their dreams.
Yeah, 100%. And, just the impact of having those conversations as well with people who are expanding and dreaming and creating, like, it sets off, and I don't know about you, but for me, it really sets off my inspiration and creativity as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked a little bit about the beliefs we have. So I was wondering if you could explain to our listeners a little bit the difference between a scarcity and an abundance mindset, because that's a word you use a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got so many visual representations in my head today, and I can't remember who actually gives this reference, but it's one of the best ones. It's from what is it? The Seven Habits of Highly Successful People. I think that's the book. You can tell I love books. I love reading, but he describes it as like scarcity is seeing that there's one pie and there's only so many slices available. So if someone takes a slice of the pie, there's less pie left for you. It's really that scarcity mindset. Whereas abundance is recognizing there's pie for everyone. There's like a pie free for all, there's limitless pie. And I think that's such a good analogy because we can see how it plays out. So, for example, if you're a coach, a scarcity mindset might be there's only so many clients, there's limited. If they get a client, that means it's less likely that I'm going to get a client. Whereas abundance recognizes there's so many people in the world who all have their own flavor of coach that they're looking for, and there's an abundance of clients. So if they're getting clients, that's just proof that I can be getting clients too. It's really switching away from fear and scarcity, and also that kind of like dog eat dog mindset. Scarcity is about competition, whereas abundance is collaboration. It's recognizing we can all grow together, we can all pull each other up. And I think it's something that's really shifting within sisterhood and women. I think because of the way that we've been kind of indoctrinated by this patriarchy that we've been surrounded by for so long, some of the wounding has meant that we think that we are competition with other women. And you can even see that recently. I saw one being shared on Instagram, and it was a Daily Mail, Daily Mail, but like it was an article where I think Jennifer Lopez is back with her ex Ben, but I think they then got her recent ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend, and were like comparing the women. And but it's all fostering this idea that we're all competition for each other. It's scarcity. We need to compete for our men. How ridiculous. Whereas that abundance mindset is collaboration, support. We could all rise together. We could all find a loving partner. We don't have to compete or any of these things. So yeah, I could go on about scarcity and abundance forever. I think it's really interesting concept to apply to so many levels of your life.
Yeah, definitely. And I like what I've seen in my personal life, it has been a lot of people feel stuck in their situation, either relationship, job, etc. Have you had that feeling before?
In terms of feeling stuck?
Yeah. Or like having this scarcity mindset.
Yeah, completely. I would sit at my office. It wasn't a booth, but like my desk, my cubicle, whatever you call it. And I would scroll on Instagram, seeing these people traveling the world and working or having abundant lifestyles. And I'd be like, that's for them, that's not for me. Like there's so limited in what I thought was available. I'll never earn as much money as I'm earning now if I do anything else. Even in that case, the amount that I could earn, I felt was limited. Just scarcity was, and it's really interesting as well. Like I'm so interested in women's relationship to scarcity because I always remember I was in this job and it came to my contract being renewed. So I was friends with the other graduate. I was on a graduate scheme. There was about 10 of us, and there was only about 2 or 3 of us that were women. And the other guys in the scheme had their contract renewed, and I knew they'd all had pay rises, and I knew what all these different pay rises were. So I went to get my contract renewed, and they said, cool, we'll renew your contract, same pay. And I was like, okay, I want to think about this. Because I was like, hang on a minute, all these guys have got a pay rise and I'm on the same, like what? And I remember talking to my boyfriend, now husband, about it. And he was like, okay, Alex, like you need to go in big and bolshy. He's like, you ask them for a 10K pay rise. He's like, what do you want? I think I said like 5K. He's like, okay, you go in at 10. Because then he was like, you negotiate, you meet in the middle. I'm like, I'm so green. I'm like, right, okay, like, okay, cool. Okay, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. So I've got it. And I went in and I asked this 10K pay rise and they were like, done. But I never would have asked for the 10K if it wasn't my husband or my boyfriend at the time telling me. And it was just so interesting noting the difference between how men would go in with that, like, I'm going to get the freaking 5K, 10K, whatever it is. But as a woman, I felt like I just needed to smile and nod and be like, okay, like I'll kind of take what you can give me kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that scarcity was so ingrained in me. And yeah, I think as women as well, you know, we do so many things that we have ingrained in us that I think kind of take what you're given is another one, which again is kind of breeding scarcity rather than like, what's the opportunity? Like, what could I call in? What's the most expansive version of what I want to call in?
I love that because it is true, and it happens to so many people, well, to so
Mm.
many women, that we just don't go after what we want because we feel like we don't deserve it sometimes.
100%, 100%. Like the self-worth around it is a huge, huge element of it.
Mm. And so what motivates you now to go after those things? What motivates you to keep showing up in your biz even when you hit a hard patch?
And my vision is bigger than any of the resistance I'm facing. So I'm also getting used to this game. Like I get it. Like shit comes up. Very recently we're in the process of applying for our visa. I received so much support and flow from the universe. I was like, me and the universe are like this. We've got this down. This is great. And then it threw in a hell of a lot of resistance, huge, huge resistance. And it was one of the most difficult blocks I faced in a very, very long time. Really, really struggled with it. But it was giving me exactly what I needed. There's
Mm.
been so many lessons in it. I mentioned before, I hate asking for help. I'm having to ask for a lot of help right now. You know, it's, I think, just trying to remember that we always look back and we go, well, that was perfect, or this taught me so much, or often our breakdowns are our biggest breakthroughs. We know that, but when we're in it, we always forget. So when things are tough, I just remind myself, okay, there's a lesson in this. Things are going to get good again. There's a pivot, there's something. As part of that, it's also remembering to stay true to that vision. It's not just rolling over and going, okay, well, I accept this now, this is obviously all I'm worth.
Mm.
Sometimes the universe tests you. They're like, do you really want this? How much do you want it? Show me. Come on. Show me how much you want it. So just know to almost play that game. Like, instead of rolling over defeated or thinking this is the sign that you're not meant to do it, really saying like, okay, like how can I move through this? What lessons can I how's this happening like for me rather than to me?
Yeah, I love that. It's definitely breakdown on your biggest breakthrough, like you mentioned. It's a beautiful expansion in some way, even though it can
100%.
suck at the time.
Oh, completely.
What's the first advice you would give someone starting their business?
Just start. Literally it. We waste so much time like making our website look perfect and writing the perfect caption, or really trying to perfect everything. Just get it out there, even if it's messy, even if it's not perfect, because you're going to learn so much more in the process than you are keeping your idea squirreled away where no one can see it and no one ever gives you any feedback. It's better to have a failure that you can learn from than failing by never trying at all.
Totally true. And I definitely am one of those people.
I get it. I was that person as well. Like, this is why it's advice I would have given because I needed it at the time.
What's your favorite part about being a coach?
Favorite part of being a coach? I think the amazing women that I get to meet. I get super, super inspired by a woman having a vision, saying that she wants more and deserves more, and powerfully going after that. That like I genuinely get so inspired. Like, you see me, but I will get off a call with like all the girls. I'm like, oh my God, these women just like give me so much life. Yeah. Being inspired by my clients probably is like the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Yeah, just seeing these women claim like what their desires are and powerfully move after them. Like honestly, it's so fucking cool.
You have a busy life. And so like I follow you on Instagram and everything, and you travel a lot and you have your social life, you have your relationship. How do you manage everything? Do you ever feel overwhelmed by it? Do you find yourself neglecting your self-care? How do you keep up with everything?
I think the answer is a bit of both. We have got very slick with the traveling process now. And, I'm very, very firm that I think you have to put yourself first in your business because you can't pour from an empty cup. So there is that element. But outside of that, my clients really do come first in my business. So it's of utmost importance to me that no matter what is going on in my life, now obviously there's limits to this. There's going to be certain circumstances where you have to step away and you have to really look after yourself. But in terms of traveling around and stuff like that, what's really important to me is my service to my clients does not drop. So we've got very good at learning to like move over a weekend, or I organize my call diary, for example, so that I will have more flexibility on certain weeks. So if we are moving, I make sure we move in those weeks. So there is just very boring answer, some organization in it and making sure to stay organized. There are times when the balance does tip over the wrong way, where I'm like, oh my God, like, I've moved from here. I remember there was a time a couple of weeks ago where I was literally drying some laundry in the back of the car because we'd had such a quick turnaround. But in times like that, I think it's just, again, the most boring answer, but I schedule in things like reading or going to the gym, or I basically schedule in nights to myself. Like I schedule these all in my calendar, because if I don't, they don't happen. If I don't do them, my calendar can get booked up. If I'm really busy, I'll even book in lunch breaks, meditations, like just so that still remain a priority. So a lot of it is organization. And then, there are times where the balance does slip off, but it's just like, how can I bring myself back and how can I prioritize what's important? So, even just small things, like recently I turned off my Instagram replies for a little bit. Now, I love my community. I love making sure that I'm super responsive, but I had a lot going on. And like I said, most important thing is my clients. I wanted to focus my energy on my clients. I wanted to give myself a bit more energy back. So I turned off and it's just little things like that that make a really big difference, because it's those micro actions that build upon each other that keep supporting you even when things are busy.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned like really putting like your self-care into your calendar, because that's something I always tell people. Like you're just gonna end up brushing it off, telling yourself you don't have the time to do it, and then after that you like have a burnout and you wonder why.
Yeah. I'm like a trained dog. Like if my calendar pings with something I need to do, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. But I joke, but like it's so relaxing for my brain, because if days are busy, I don't have to be thinking, what do I need to do next? What's a priority? It's in my calendar, it pings up. I'm like, okay, so I need to do that now and I need to do this. It's actually there's much more freedom in the organization than there is when I've been in chaos previously. And I thought that was freedom, not having structure. I just felt all over the place. It made me feel drained. I didn't know if I was coming or going. Like, yeah, just having that go off. And like you say, I can't come up with the excuse that isn't time, because it's literally blocked out in my diary. I've literally got the time there.
Yeah. What are your best tips when it comes to building a team, a community, and then finding clients?
In terms of building team, I think, yes, skill sets can be great, but I think you can teach skills. My first VA, I literally taught her everything. She'd never been a VA before. When I say everything, like obviously she had some, her own skills that she brought, but in terms of like the software and, how the processes worked, but, we resonated. That was much more important. So I think really making sure that people match your energy and resonate with you is really important for the team. Equally, that they do understand how you need to work and that you put firm boundaries in place there, because things move fast in my business. I need people who can be efficient, get things done. If they say they're going to meet a deadline, they meet it. Like they follow the system. So just making sure that it's kind of both, if that makes sense, like a really good fit. I actually use human design now to make sure that my team members like really their design fits within the role that they're working within, which has been a real game changer. Yeah, I love it. In terms of community, I know it's said all the time, but I honestly just think be authentic. I think people smell inauthenticity like a mile off, and if they don't straight away, they will eventually. So being authentic, allowing people, being vulnerable, allowing people to connect with you as a human. I don't think people want gurus. I don't think people want someone who's never eaten shit before. I think they want people who know what it's like to go through struggle, because they also know how to move through it, how to support them through it. And in terms of getting clients, really, I think one, ask for the clients. I think so many people forget to share their offerings or say, I have slots available. Do you want to work with me? So like, actively putting it out there, but also really demonstrating why people should work with you. I think I definitely fell into this trap. My Instagram was like a bit of a dear diary. And, I still love sharing personal posts. I do share a lot about personal stuff on there as well. That's my my style, my authentic style. But I also make sure to provide a lot more value now. So I'm actually demonstrating to people how I can help them, like, what my expertise is. So they really recognize and can see that within me. I'm not just kind of like, it's just like waiting to be seen thing. And I think a lot of coaches have that, or
Yeah.
service based, it's that like waiting to be discovered, like someone's going to discover you and like realize how amazing you are. Like, no, people are fucking busy. People are not going around like waiting to discover you. Like, you're not going to get talent scouted by someone who says you're the next big coach or the next big social media manager or whatever it may be. Like, you got to tell people, you got to put it out there, you got to show up. So I think, yeah, just really showing up, but making sure it's authentic.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of my biggest resistance, I would say, was when I started thinking that the people would be attracted to my energy and they would just like magically appear, because I
Mm.
was so afraid of doing what I find really annoying is when people cold DM you. So I was really afraid of doing that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just not doing anything then.
Yeah, so I think there's, finding your levels as well. So I would never teach cold DMing. Like, there are ways to be chatting to clients in the DMs where you've invited them in through, starting conversations or engagement. But I think, yeah, I think those negative associations can kind of taint the whole thing. And then you're like, I don't want to do any of it. Like, I'm just not going to do any of it.
Yeah.
I think there is I'm really passionate about soulful business, soulful selling. I think there's a soulful way of doing these things that aren't feeling spammy or icky, that can, and there is definitely a magnetism point to this. Like, you do want to start to feel magnetic and magnetically attract your clients. But I think, yeah, there still has to be the invitation there. You still, need to invite your clients in. And also remember, like, some people need support. Some
Mm.
people don't feel brave enough to reach out. And that's not to say you cold DM them, but even very simple things like telling them exactly how they can reach out to you could make that so much less scary than them having to like drop your DM and are you going to respond or sending it. Just make it easy for people. Like, think about them as well. It's actually a much less selfish way of approaching it when we think, how can I support them in this process?
Yeah, totally. And so we talked a little bit about how to grow a community and find clients and everything, and even build your team. One thing that I'm really interested in is learning a lot more about how to bring spirituality into your business. And you know how the masculine and feminine energy, masculine is all like go, 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 and then feminine is more with the
Mm.
flow. So could
Mm.
you talk a little bit more about that and if how you work with it in your own business?
Yeah, for sure. I think exploring masculine and feminine energy in business is so interesting and so illuminating. It's really interesting. And I think a lot of the hustle culture that we've lived within has come from a dominance of the masculine energy. So really weaving in this beautiful, creative, collaborative, flowing feminine energy is a beautiful release and just creates so much magic. But I think, you know, just like the yin and the yang, the best is when they're in balance. So you have a bit of both, because when you think about the yin and the yang, you know how there's like the little black dot within the white and the white dot within the black. That's because they work best when they're supporting each other. It's not just like one without the other. So with that, I think for me personally, it looks like having structure. So I get things done. So I'm not just left in chaos. So I'm not just left flowing and never making just kind of being like, oh, I'm not sure what to do now. And, never having any of that forward drive or things like that, but equally allowing in a lot of that creativity, leaving space for that creativity. So that looks like for me, for example, if I have a creative project that I'm working on, I cannot ram that into a half an hour slot within a busy day.
Mm.
I will book half a morning off in my diary or clear a couple of hours where I can put on my music, light my candle, my incense, whatever it may be, and really sit in that creativity and that softness without my emails pinging up all the time, or without me trying to respond to 1,000 things in between. So I really structure my diary to allow space for the feminine to flow, but also noting when I need to bring in more of that masculine energy, and kind of grouping those activities together so I can really kind of channel that masculine energy into them, but I'm not always in that masculine
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like a lot of people fall into the trap of hustling all the time, and they forget to really, like you mentioned earlier, but pour into your own cup first.
Yeah, 100%. And also, when we're something that I see as a really common symptom that someone's been in their masculine too much is they're like, Alex, I just can't write any captions at the moment, or I've got no ideas, or like I just can't, like, the words aren't coming, or the creativity isn't coming, or whatever it is. And often it's because there's no space. This is why when you get in the shower you come up with ideas, or when you put your head on the pillow at night suddenly your mind's like
Yeah.
you finally stopped and allowed the space for them to come in, the quiet. This is why, meditation practices, having a couple of free hours in your diary, all these things can be so powerful. Taking a break, this is why all these things are so powerful. That's actually giving you forward momentum. It's just not in the hustle sense.
Yeah. And what brings you creativity?
Cool space. Like, if you give me a free day, my God, like my brain goes wild. Space, sunshine, expansive conversations, inspiring friendships, reading. But I love piano music. I love having piano music in the background. That really, like, I think I've created it like an anchor for creativity if I need to switch it on. So like I put the piano music on. Yeah, all these things just help me feel really creative.
My next question might be a little bit personal, but I'm wondering
Mm,
how, because you mentioned about your boyfriend that's now your husband and how he
mm,
supported you in your business. And a lot of people forget to talk about that side of how your business might impact your relationship, or how your relationship might impact your business. So, can you tell
mm.
us a little bit more about that, and what advice would you give someone to really
Mhm.
balance both of those out?
Yeah, for sure. So it's quite interesting because mine and Jake's journey, we've obviously like come into each other's lives for a lot of reasons. And when I first met Jake, he was starting a business.
Mm,
So we haven't really known each other without the
okay.
ups, downs, strains, joys of having a business. And when I met him, his balance was all off. Like, we'd met and fell in love very quickly. It was very kind of almost quite whirlwindy. Like, we moved in together after 6 months, and we got engaged after a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, it wasn't like complete whirlwindy, but things did move quite fast. We were very sure about each other. But on the flip side of that, Jake was also growing this business, and that was taking a lot of his energy. He wouldn't take holidays, he would work late, he worked weekends. It was crazy. His balance was, and he'll admit this, I'm not kind of speaking for him, like, he'll say his balance was all off, and that created a lot of strain on our relationship.
Mhm.
And then, just as he's coming into maybe a bit more of a balanced place, I decided to quit my job and start a business with no savings, no idea what I was doing. And I'm thrown into a world of working a million jobs, Airbnb the spare rooms in our flat to try and keep some money. I was doing promo jobs, writing jobs, starting this business, launching this business. Then I had that kind of flip side of it as well. And we've been through various evolutions in our businesses, and what's been amazing is, for all the difficulty it's created, is we've had to learn a hell of a lot, and we've had to really go through some really tough times. We've both been at salary zero, where one or the other of us isn't earning any money. We've both supported each other in terms of kind of saying, I can get that course for you, or I can get that course for you, or we can take that out of our house savings and things like this. There's been a lot of that kind of support between us both, and balancing it, and all the kind of things that we've learned have come through it's been hard. It hasn't been easy. We didn't always get it right, but the tips that I would say now is never lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing, because I think sometimes you're so focused on growing your business, you lose sight of why you're growing it. And often, for me, a big part of it was freedom. Well, how much freedom was I creating when I was working 7 days a week and had no personal space because I was renting every room in our flat, So how could I weave that freedom back in? How could I weave back the fact that I wanted to spend more time with him and actually spend time together? We've had to have really firm boundaries in terms of when laptops go off, work, phones go down and work stop. Boring again, but scheduling in date days or date evenings where we actually go on a date together and spend quality time together. Because otherwise, those are the things that get unprioritized as well. They get pushed out the diary and things like this. So yeah, it's been hard, but I think learning to just focus on what's important, make it a priority, schedule things in, and also, as things move, everything kind of flows. So there's times where, yes, it gets a bit more intense, or things are really busy, maybe I'm on a launch or something like that, but then things calm down again. So just riding the waves a little bit as well, and having patience for each other during those waves.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much in what you said that like I love and I agree with. What I struggle with is, so like I'm launching my courses soon, and I've been like working on the podcast, and sometimes I kind of up at 1 a.m. still working on it and he's asleep. Well, my boyfriend is asleep, and I've been stressing and stressing, and he's telling me, like this is you're the one making the dateline. Like you can push it off if it's too much. And I feel like that's something, even even if people don't have a business, that they have been struggling with during COVID, because everybody's has been working from home. And so there's been this really difficult time of letting go of work and putting it aside. But what you said about like, times to close a laptop, like that can make a big difference.
Yeah, someone said to me that self-love was discipline. And as someone who hates the word discipline, I was
Yeah.
like, no. But then the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh yeah. But it's not like harsh discipline, it's like a loving parent. It's like, if you were your kid right now and you were at 1 in the morning, not sleeping and working on these things, like what would you tell them as a loving parent? You'd probably tell them to close the laptop, go to, and I think weaving that in a really beautiful way and having those firm boundaries. And like you said, yeah, like recognizing when deadlines need to shift. I always write out a plan for my year where I'm like, month 1, I'm going to launch this. Month 2, I'm going to create this program here. And I'm going to launch this here. And like, I got to July and I realized, there were a couple of big projects that I'm not going to do right now. And there's some other projects that have taken a bit longer, but that's okay because I'm not going to kill myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to maintain self-love and boundaries and rest. I am not going to kill myself. Nothing is worth killing yourself for. Like you've got to really like love yourself and love yourself enough to realize when other things can wait.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people might be too hard on themselves when they have to push something off. So I want to talk a little bit about your own podcast, the Soul Yes podcast. So you talk about having a full body yes. So what does that mean to you, and what is your latest full body yes?
Love this question. It's so funny because I ask people like on the podcast what's the soul yes to them, but no one ever asked me. So I like this. Oh God, a soul yes is just that feeling of like, for me, it feels like coming home. It's like, this is it. This is the thing I've been looking for. Or this is what I want. Like this feels good. This feels in alignment. And you feel that in your whole body. Like you feel it on every level. That isn't to say sometimes it doesn't feel scary as well. Because like I think sometimes a soul yes can be an expander. And like an expander comes with a bit of fear, but it also is just like, you're like, oh, no, I gotta do this. This is gonna be good. Again, a soul yes doesn't mean there's no resistance, but you just know that this is the thing that you need to move towards. It's like magnetic. What's my latest soul yes? Oh, I think one of my recent soul yeses is moving to America. It was completely unexpected. I never thought I'd want to live in America. I didn't plan for it, and it made no logical sense. It's really hard to move to America. It's not easy, as I'm increasingly discovering, particularly during COVID times. But
Yeah.
it was a soul yes. It was like, I gotta be here. I want to be here. Everything just feels so good. I feel in flow. My business grows. I feel just like absolute sunshine. Like, it's just a full body soul yes.
Love it. Yeah, when I signed up for your program, like it was a soul body yes, like no second guessing, but there was still that fear of, oh my God, am I going to feel overwhelmed? Like, am I going to doubt myself? Like all those insecurities that comes up.
100%. We're facing these visa problems at the moment, and I spent the weekend honestly crying because I needed to. I needed to process all the emotion I was feeling, everything that was coming up. I needed to process my frustration, my disappointment. And I will be honest about that because I think it's healthy. I think it's very healthy to feel your emotions and to get it out and to process it. And I sat there at times this weekend and I just said, maybe I'm just not meant to be there. Maybe this is not what I'm meant to do. Maybe I'm just not meant to be there. But then I would have a friend message me being like, you are coming and we're going to get you here. And this is how we're going to do it. And, I journaled and I asked the universe for a sign. I cannot tell you how many, actually makes me emotional, how many times this weekend I genuinely felt completely distraught because I was like, I'd had this dream, we were moving towards it. I'd been so divinely supported. Incredible manifestations have come through supporting this, like bigger than I'd ever manifested before. And suddenly we face this resistance. I cannot tell you how many signs this weekend. Like I bought a travel magazine and I'm just like flicking through and I saw like it was like some joggers or something that I like. So I like stopped the page and put it down. And when I opened the page, I looked up and it was about Miami. And I had no idea. I just spotted the joggers. It was a random page in the magazine. Like just so many. We went into a garden center. One of my friends who lives in Miami, she's written a book. And this garden center sells like the most random books. It's just like, it's a random garden center in this tiny town. And her book was on the shelf. Like so many just signs just came through that I had to get over my pity party and over the processing as well, and be like, okay, I felt this through, but now I need to move towards it. So yeah, you can feel scared, you can feel like giving up, but like that vision, that soul yes, it's bigger than any of our fear.
Yeah, and I love that you're mentioning all of this because I've been reading a book by Rachel Hollis.
Oh yeah.
I didn't see that coming. And it's all about, you need to process every devastating emotions that you feel, but the show must go on. And
Yeah.
I find that a beautiful analogy of emotions, or like you need to feel them or it's unhealthy, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't stay stuck in them.
Yeah, I'm so with you. And I think this is a really important distinction because I think there's a difference between processing and sitting in it. And like, there were times I could feel myself, for example, this weekend moving towards sitting in it. And that was when I needed to like really be like, okay, hang on a minute. There's a difference between processing and wallowing. Like, where is the point where I pick myself up and I make a plan and I start to move forward again and I keep on manifesting and I keep on pivoting, shifting, changing, but really supporting it.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time you pivot, it makes me think of the Friends episode.
Pivot, pivot
And it's
with the
kind of like
couch.
that too, right? In life, you need to always change direction and adapt and be flexible.
Yeah, I mean, look at the pandemic. Who on earth would have thought 18 months ago that the whole world would grind to a stop and that 18 months later we would still be on some level in the midst of a pandemic?
Yeah.
I know certain places are opening up and certain things, but a lot of the world is still not normal, not back to normal. So just never would have predicted it. I think I think having to pivot is just part of life, part of business as well, a huge part of business.
And it comes back to my next question. How do you think the pandemic and COVID has affected your business and your life? And how have you overcome those challenges?
when the pandemic hit, my business was just starting to take off, and I was doing a lot of in-person events, and I was working with a lot of early stage businesses, and a lot of those early stage businesses had to stop coaching because they were worried about their business. It's hard to remember now, but we all went into panic and we just like stopped everything. So I lost not all my clients, but I think 2/3 of my clients, and all my in-person events were cancelled. But I've managed to grow my business at an incredible rate within the last 18 months because I came back to that key question of like, how can I be of service right now? How can I support people? And I really listened. So I launched my first group program within the pandemic because I was like, women need community, they need support, they need sisterhood. And also, this is getting us to ask a lot of big questions about their life. They need to focus on that. And it was really by continuing to be of service that I could grow, and also pivoting to, taking in-person events, putting them online. People were bored, people were frustrated. Being a beacon and providing some light and something that was positive, or just even space to process, was so helpful. That was the way that you can, and I think this is again, that soulful business where yes, you can grow your business whilst also creating a wider impact in the world as well. So yeah, I think that's what it really came back to.
Yeah, love that. So my last question would have to do with self-care and self-love. So what's your favorite way to show yourself some love? When do you feel the most expensive?
Oh, I love that question. When do you feel the most? Honestly, like I couldn't pick one thing. I have like a whole host of, because I really think self-care has to be intuitive to how you're feeling at that time and what you need. Like sometimes self-care to me is just like watching, I'm a sucker for a terrible reality TV show which goes against like everything else. For some reason I love some, like I've just started watching My Unorthodox Life, which is actually really fascinating as well because it's got this kind of like Orthodox Jewish element. It's a lot about women, power, patriarchy, religion, fundamentalism, and it's a reality TV show, so it's like a complete combination of both. But sometimes it's literally just watching some Netflix and letting my brain switch off, because I don't need to learn, I don't need to process, I don't need to do anything. I just need to sit and just like allow my brain to switch off time. Other times, it's sitting and journaling, or other time, incense for me, I love scent. So a sleep candle or lighting some incense is really beautiful. Sitting in a bath and listening to an audiobook. I know that everyone hates this like traditional self-care of like putting a face mask on, but to grant myself that time to sit and like self-nurture and take time to like rub oils into my face, or like sit and smooth a face mask in. It's less about the face mask, it's more about the self-nurturing. That feels really loving to me. That feels like a real gift to give myself that time. So yeah, but there's just so many things. It just depends what I need. Or just sitting with my dogs and having cuddles, that's one of my favorite ones. How can you not be in the moment when you're with dogs and they're so affectionate? It's just like a whole love fest.
Oh yeah, they are so cute. Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because oftentimes the smallest things are the things we forget to do.
Completely. You can make washing your face every night an act of self-care if you just like take your time and you're present with it and you touch yourself with love. Whenever I'm teaching women around self-love, when I used to do a lot more, I still do transformational life coaching. One of the practices that I'd love to get them to do is just after they've been in a shower or the bath, instead of like slapping on the moisturizer or just not bothering, stopping, pausing, taking a moment, massaging yourself, nurturing and loving each part of your body. We can weave self-love into every act that we do. We just need to do it with intention.
Love that. Yeah, 100%. So where can people find you if they want to work with you?
For sure. So I hang out on Instagram way more than I should. So I am Alexandria Maria. I've also got a website, alexandriamaria.co.uk. Either of those you can get hold of me pretty easily.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. It was such a beautiful conversation. And I mean, I feel like I could talk forever and ask like 1,000,000,000 questions, but I think we got the best for this episode. So thank you so much for coming on.
I love that. Thank you so much for asking me. It's such an honor, and you're just so incredible. And I know that everything you're going to create is going to create such amazing impact in the world. So thank you for letting me support you, because it really is an honor.
Oh, thank you.